There are people out on the streets in one of the wealthiest nations on the planet, you know, that are struggling for meals, for shelter.
Things are tight right now. Rent's high everywhere.
Had you ever been homeless before?
Never. Never.
These are America's working poor, earning so little they can't afford a home, not even one for rent.
You know, you might work today, might not tomorrow, which puts you in a bind because you're only making like $40 to $50, maybe $60 a day.
So how much were you earning an hour?
No more than like $8 an hour.
Right. And you're 38? 38.
Yes, ma'am.
Maureen Ford works several jobs in catering and cleaning, but most businesses won't give her more than 30 hours a week to avoid paying health care. She's been homeless 18 months. So do you ever feel vulnerable when you're living on the streets?
You really cannot rest like
You can't relax?
Nah, you can never.
You're on edge.
Relax. I am.
John Bobbitt used to own his own maintenance business.
I had 4 people working for me.
Today, he's making grilled cheese sandwiches at Safe House Outreach in Atlanta. Losing everything in New Orleans when Hurricane Katrina hit forced him on the streets for the best part of a decade.
You may not took a shower for 2 or 3 days. Yeah, I wouldn't hire myself if I was looking like that. I never was really religious at that point, but I started praying to God at that point.
He decided to start walking New Orleans to Atlanta, over 700 kilometers in 32 days. Safe House Outreach helped him find a full-time job, but he was jobless after just 18 months due to illness. Now he oversees the kitchen here, which serves hundreds of meals a day to the homeless. Should we take these down?
Yeah.
The official unemployment rate might be at record lows, but Safe House Outreach says they've seen an increase in the number of underemployed.
On a given year, we'll see about 4,000 people.
This is the report being presented to the United Nations. It finds if you are one of the 40 million Americans living in poverty, you're likely to stay that way. The American dream, it says, is rapidly becoming an American illusion. Across the US, people working for tips can often earn as little as $2.13 an hour and have to make up the rest in tips just to meet the federal minimum wage of $7.25.
They're not livable wages. These are little tokens that they're throwing. These are the crumbs from your table.
Nolan English is the director of the outreach program.
At least 40% of the people that we serve are working. They're holding down 2 or 3 jobs.
Around the clock, 7 days a week, they send out teams to talk with people who are struggling, living below the poverty line. One man living in a park started convulsing in front of us. Had Nolan not been there to call paramedics, the situation could have been far more dire. The UN report found, unlike other wealthy nations, the US has neglected its signed international agreements, which state that access to healthcare and food are basic human rights.
The only thing that could be done with this current administration would have to be a total change of heart.
Philip Alston is the UN Special Rapporteur on extreme poverty and human rights, who's responsible for that very report. He joins us now live from Geneva. Thank you so much for being with us.
My pleasure.
Before I get to your report on poverty, I want to get your reaction to the US withdrawing from the United Nations Human Rights Council. The US ambassador to the UN described the council as a cesspool of political bias. Your response?
I think it's very regrettable that the United States is pulling out. The Human Rights Council is the only international forum where all of these issues can be discussed. It might have characteristics of a cesspool, but like swamps, one needs to stay in there in order to clean it up. It's very significant that the United States is the only country that has pulled out of the Human Rights Council. All the others, even those who are most upset about the way Israel is treated, are staying in there and are determined to make a fight of it. Taking your football and going home is not the way to solve the world's human rights problems.
And talking about the US, it is arguably the richest nation on the planet. To produce your poverty report, you went coast to coast investigating. What horrified you the most?
Well, it's the contrasts, first of all. In a city like Los Angeles, right next to a very wealthy central business district, you've got close to 2,000 people living on Skid Row, almost no toilet facilities worthy of the name, no prospects of finding housing in the foreseeable future. Many places around the country, Alabama, where I saw open sewage in front gardens and so on. And all that is contrasted with the immense wealth in the country. Secondly, I think there is a real change in the political attitude. Historically, the New Deal of Franklin Delano Roosevelt, the Great Society of Lyndon Baines Johnson, were all absolutely dedicated to trying to eliminate poverty. Today, most Americans don't care about it. They have bought the line peddled by conservative groups that poor people deserve what they're getting. They don't look at the fact, as illustrated in your lead-up, that even people who are working full-time can't afford a decent living. They do need food stamps. They do need the sort of assistance that government can provide. But instead, what we see is a constant cutback in all of those benefits by this administration.
Yeah, it's interesting you mention that, because one of the people I interviewed for that report said the culture in America has to change. He said America's very self-serving. He said, you think of America, you think of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, all very self-centric objectives.
Yes, I mean, it's no accident that the United States is the only country in the developed world that doesn't have a universal healthcare system. It doesn't matter what that system is, but it says to everyone in the society that we will guarantee you the basics of healthcare. The United States doesn't do that. The United States doesn't have a commitment to a comprehensive social safety net for people who are down and out. Every country has those people. Illnesses are unavoidable. Mental health problems, drug problems, all of these are unavoidable. The society needs to be there to catch those who are falling through the net. And in the United States, that basic proposition is not acceptable. They can look after themselves, and whatever happens, we don't care.
Philip Alston, we'll have to leave it there, but so great to have you on the program, and thanks so much for that report.
Thank you.
Well, still ahead, a British doctor is accused of overdosing her patients with strong painkillers. What a newly released report reveals about the woman known as Dr. Opiate.